If you don't have more frameworks than rigid plans, then we're going to get into trouble because the magic is in the frameworks. Because a framework allows you to be successful in all walks of life. Just like food, for example, like not just when things are perfect and chill and aligned and not crazy at home, but what about when things go awry? What about things like on vacation or when things get stressful or chaotic? These kind of things. I view framework as more of structured freedom, right? Think of more guardrails like on a road versus a tightrope. So that's why in today's episode, we're going to get into the styles and the different kinds of frameworks that you really need to have if you want to make sure you're not gaining your weight back. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. If you're new around here, welcome to the show. My name is Jared Hamilton, and I'm your host every single week. Now, in today's episode, I have a really cool lesson planned for you because in today's show, I'm going to show you the 5 frameworks that you need to have in place to ensure you never regain your weight back. It's funny, I kind of tested the idea of this particular piece of content in my Facebook community. If you're not part of that, you should join. And it's totally free. We'll just say it blew up. I was talking about these frameworks and literally everyone freaked out and like hundreds of people wanted them. So I figured what better place to go a little bit more in depth than right here. So, because here's the thing, to give a little bit of context around this. I'm a big framework guy, like as a coach, like as someone who helps create results for other people and takes them through all these walks of life in achieving their goals and keeping them. I'm a big framework guy because the thing is, if you don't have more frameworks than rigid plans, then we're going to get into trouble because the magic is in the frameworks, right? Like a case in point is like, let's say a meal plan, right? Meal plans are fine. You might get results for a little bit until you get tired of eating those foods or you go out to eat or have time with your kids or whatever the case is. But it's like in that finite time of like, cool, I'm eating these 7 foods every day. Well, that's great, but it's not very practical. So there's not enough flexibility with it. That's just one example versus a framework is more of what I call a like structured freedom. And there's a lot of frameworks. So, and even in this, I'm not going to get into the uber crazy specifics around it. I'm more or less wanting you to start thinking about your plan in terms of frameworks. Right. That's the big thing is I'm going to show you the styles and the types of frameworks that you have, because when it comes to a lot of the deeper, more intricacies in the frameworks, that can be more individual or involves a lot more context. But otherwise, I think you really need to start thinking in terms of frameworks around your goals, your struggles, and things like that, because a framework allows you to be successful in all walks of life. Just like food, for example, like not just when things are perfect and chill and aligned and not crazy at home, but what about when things go awry? What about things like on vacation or when things get stressful or chaotic? These kind of things. I view framework as more of structured freedom, right? Think of more guardrails like on a road versus a tightrope, because that also dictates your experience during a transformation, because you can't be walking around with anxious as fuck and feel like a crazy person, then expect to sustain your goals. That's not practical. It's not how human behavior works. So that's why in today's episode, we're going to get into the styles and the different kinds of frameworks that you really need to have if you want to make sure you're not gaining your weight back. Because I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're more of a future game thinker, right? You don't listen to an episode called Dieting from the Inside Out and are into like rapid fat loss protocols and things like that. Well, you might be, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm assuming if you're here, you want to have strategies where you are keeping the weight off forever, where you're not just doing a quick fix, you're thinking about long-term. You're willing to obviously invest your time listening to my show. I'm guessing you're the kind of person that invests your money and resources, and you're a longer version thinker, right? That wants to get the right results the right way. So I'm just going to assume that about you if you're listening to this. So that's who I'm talking to, at least. So let's get into it. If you're watching the YouTube video and you see me looking around, I've got a little bit more notes than normal on this episode just because I have a lot to cover. So if you see me looking around, that's why. Okay, framework number 1 is a great relationship with food. The problem in the world of fat loss is most people, their relationship with food is very separate from fat loss, which is really sad because one of the most tactical things you can do to lose weight is have a great relationship with food, right? If all of a sudden, like your relationship with food, if it's bad, is what's causing you to binge eat, what causes you to fall off is what causes you to feel overwhelmed and guilty, and your cravings go all over the place, and restriction comes in and scarcity mentality, all bad things happen in the world of fat loss around your relationship with food. But, but too often, people have in their heads like, well, I'm losing weight now, I'll fix my relationship with food later. That's a problem. That's like saying I'm going to build a house, but I'll build the foundation later. You kind of need the foundation to build the house. So it's why one of the most tactical things you can do around your fat loss goals is have a great relationship with food. But most people don't have a framework around it. So like, for example, some things I have in my notes here is this is when we need to, like, framework wise, we need to lose the labels of like things like good, bad, cheat, fattening, guilt, those kind of things, like, or guilt-free, because that assumes everything else that you eat is guilt-ridden. You see what I'm saying? So that things like we need to start incorporating your favorite foods into your plan. Right? Like one of the first things I have my clients do when I work with them is whatever foods that they're struggling with, we have to find a way to get those foods back involved in their lives. Otherwise, we're never going to fix the relationship with food. Right? These kind of things. If you are struggling with the relationship with food, that's what causes you to restrict, and then what causes you to binge, and what causes the mental food noise and guilt and obsession to be really high. So if you don't have like a framework in your head around here's my like structured freedom, if you will, around your relationship with food, like, and how to improve it, you're going to find your results are probably going to be short-lived. And again, if you're listening to this, I'm assuming you're the kind of person who wants results that last forever and are willing to do things the right way to get those results and keep them versus just another quick fix. You know what I mean? So that's why you need to think in terms of your fat loss and your relationship with food. These are what I call traveling companions. Think of like a helix, like a DNA helix, where they wrap around each other like this. If you're watching the video, or if you're not watching the video, I twisted my fingers together, but you get what I'm saying, where your relationship with food and fat loss should go hand in hand. If you're noticing you can lose weight, but your relationship with food stalls or gets worse, big red flags. In that case, we actually need to hyper focus on the relationship with food first. But at the end of the day, the very first framework that we need to have in place is where you can start mending your relationship with food or fixing it if it's hurt or broken. Because at the end of the day, you can't avoid something and get it better. So again, with your relationship with food, this means we need to start changing our verbiage around food. We need to stop avoiding our favorite foods. We need to be careful with the meanings and associations that we have with certain foods. Like we need to take, things like salad, chicken, and rice off pedestals and think they're morally superior to things like cookies, cake, and ice cream, and quit acting like those are morally inferior and those are like from the devil almost, or those are evil and I got to avoid them by all costs, these kind of things. So if you don't have any frameworks in place around those, you're going to be a little bit far off. But otherwise, we really need to lean into those frameworks. Okay. Hopefully this is making sense. My goal is I really want you to start thinking different with this. That's my intention with today's episode, is I really want you to basically go, oh, I've never thought about things like that. I've always thought about rigid plans, not a framework. Oh, I've never thought about these categories of frameworks. So that's my intention here. So framework number two, I should say, is basically ways to regulate and feel your emotions separately from food. You need to have emotional frameworks in place all the time, because here's why. You're an emotional being. You're an emotional creature, right? But too often, a lot of the more generalized fat loss advice or diet advice is treating you like you're like a robot, right? Oh, go work out, it's therapy. Or, oh, just go on a walk and, whatever. Or oh, just buckle down and think about your why harder. Like, that's not very helpful. I don't know about you, but at least for me, it's not. And the thing is, we have to be able to regulate our own emotions. You're an emotional creature. We make decisions based on emotions most of the time for most people. And if you have experienced negative emotions, because to be honest, as a byproduct of the human condition, we all are going to experience all the emotions. I don't even like labeling them negative, but you know what I'm talking about. We all are going to experience stress. We're all going to experience sadness or depression. We're all going to experience anxiety. We all feel lonely. We all feel like uncertain or confused. In the day and age in which I'm filming this right now, there's a lot of craziness in the world, right? A lot of uncertainty, a lot of stress. Especially if you have kids and a partner and a job, like you've got a lot on your shoulders. And it's a very normal part of the human condition to go through and experience these negative emotions. Well, if you don't have a way to hold space and allow yourself to feel those emotions and heal through those and regulate your own nervous system, then we've got big problems. Especially if you have any semblance of fat loss goals. If that means you turn to food, if you're a stress eater or an emotional eater, or the only way you can like get a quick dopamine hit or feel a little bit better or get a little bit of release or relief is like going into comfort food or like those are the terms a lot of people use, then we've got big problems. Like imagine if your goal was to save money, but instead of emotional eating, you were an emotional spender. You would like do so good budgeting your money, saving all week, but then one bad day you would go rack up all this credit card debt. Well, it's the same thing with weight loss. I see so many people who are doing everything right. They're in a small calorie deficit. They're getting their workouts and they're eating their protein. They're doing everything right. But because they don't know how to regulate their emotions separately from food, or they don't have a framework on, okay, I'm feeling this way. I'm triggered. My emotions are heightened. I don't know. They don't have a framework. Then they undo all the progress they work so hard to work, because it doesn't take a whole lot that's consistent to throw someone off. Like, you could just have 1 or 2 days a week that are off, but if it's every single week, it'll undo all the progress that you're making, right? Of course, no one single event makes or breaks anyone, but if that 1 week, 1 day per week that where you binge or you fall off, or 1 or 2 days a week where you just say, fuck it, I don't care, or the emotional eating gets the better of you, and that's every week, it's like a weekly holiday, well, then it's no wonder you're not going to reach your goals. And if it will feel like you're doing the right things most of the time. You're like, I do so good, except for when I get off on Friday after work and I just binge eat in the pantry. Why is that 1 day? Well, it's because that 1 day is every single week, or whatever the case might be. So this is why the second framework that you need to have in place, my favorite to teach, is frameworks around how to regulate your emotions separately from food. This is why, like, what that would look like is we need to find ways where you can actually, as hard as it is, feel what you're feeling. Right? Too often we feel stress, worry, anxiety, negative emotions, and we don't want to be with them. Like, it blows me away the amount of people who are so willing to eat 1,200 calories a day, work out 3 hours a day. But then when I go, hey, let's meditate, let's sit with those emotions, let's just be with them, let's breathe through them, let's journal about them, whatever the case may be, all these different frameworks. It's like, oh no, that doesn't work for me. Or, oh, I get quiet and my brain won't shut up. Like, yeah, well, that's the point. You've been avoiding these for so long. So this is why the second framework is you have to have some semblance of frameworks and a boundary and a go-to process to regulate yourself. I think it was Mel Robbins, I heard it first, where she said, in the same way with our laundry, you do laundry. It's impossible. She says, it's impossible to do laundry without creating dryer lint. It's why you have a framework, you empty the lint trap. Otherwise your house burns down eventually. Well, she said, but in her words, she goes, well, we are humans going through crazy ass lives with responsibilities, stress, chaos, kids, life, work, school, all the things. But if we don't have a way to empty our mental lint trap, we're going to be struggling, because just like you can't do a load of laundry without creating lint, you can't go through a day in the life of you without creating mental and emotional lint. Again, you're an emotional creature living in a very physical body with an intellect that lives in a stressful, chaotic world. You have to have ways to regulate yourself. And if you don't, you are in for trouble. This is when people turn away from this stuff and then they wonder why they struggle. And then when they wonder why these deeper issues going on below the surface that feel like they have nothing to do with weight loss manifest on the surface as in their weight loss journey. I have so many people who have issues going on in their marriage, issues going on in their life, their job, their work, their emotional state, these deeper inner issues. And because they aren't handling them from the inside out, like the show, The Dieting from the Inside Out, they're actually coming into the world of weight loss and fucking things up. Right? That whether it be by emotional eating or knowing what to do but not doing it, or feeling burnt out or not giving a fuck, or sabotage. But again, you're an emotional creature. So if you do not have frameworks in your life and in your plan to regulate your emotions, we're going to have issues. Okay. So that's framework number 2. Framework number 3, your identity. So we need to have frameworks around who you think you are. Because the truth is, your actions always default to who you think you are, which means the identity is the problem, right? Let me put it this way: your identity is who you think you are, and the stories you replay over and over again about yourself. What's funny is your identity isn't who you actually are; it's who you're convinced you are. Like, imagine there's this viral photo that went around the internet where it showed like this. It was either a big old horse or like a donkey. Either way, they're strong animals. They were tied to like one of those like cheap dollar store plastic lawn chairs. You know, they're cheap. Like, you sit in them too hard and they break. And this horse or this donkey had the reins just looped over the handle or the armrest of it. And the donkey was stuck, or the horse was stuck. When in reality, it could literally have turned its head and the chair would have like flung across the yard. They're like, that's how flimsy it was. Well, but the donkey was convinced, or the horse was convinced that, well, I'm stuck, because its identity and its belief systems were, I'm stuck. It was stuck, and it wasn't even using its personal power. The same thing as you. If you're convinced because you struggle with binge eating, you're a binger. Or if you're convinced that you're not the kind of person who gets to where they want to be, or if you struggle with the version of yourself that you think you are, Well, the problem is your actions will always default to that. It's like its own self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We're on autopilot as humans, like roughly 85-90% of the day. Think about that. You're literally on autopilot, not even consciously aware the vast majority of the day. Well, what are you on default or autopilot to? It's your identity. Well, if your identity is I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not supposed to be happy, I'm a binger, I've always struggled, I'm too old, it's too late for me, I'm uncontrolled, once I start, I can't stop. We all have stories that we replay over and over in our heads that live rent free. And if we don't have a framework in place to fix our identity, our identity, or to correct our identity, we've got problems. That's why one of my favorite things I'll have clients do is work around this. I have like certain journal prompts I'll give clients to help them recraft their identity and choose who they are on purpose instead of just staying the shitty version of themselves because somehow they got here, right? Because once you decide who you are, once you fix and set your identity and let go of the old identity and say, this is who I am now we have to align all our actions with that version of yourself. Because the truth is we don't get what we want, we get what we are, right? Who you think you are, right? So if you think you're not good enough, well, you're going to find ways to sabotage anytime you get good things. Anytime you're making progress, if you go, man, I'm too far gone. I'm too old. It's too late for me. I look at bread and store fat, whatever the old story is. Well, what happens when you start making progress? Your identity will go, oop, we're threatened, and it will find ways to sabotage. It's dangerous. So this is why the third framework you need to have is around your identity. Do you have a system and a process where you can go, okay, here's how I keep myself in check. Here's how I always reinvent myself. Here's how I always align all my actions to who I think I am. Because if you don't, then the old identity will take over because you're on autopilot and the mind craves and gravitates to what's most familiar. So if you have a history of struggle, guess what? You will naturally drift to more struggle. As someone who's struggled, if you've struggled for, let's say, years and years or even decades of your life, not struggling anymore is going to feel like you're wearing someone else's clothes. Like right now, think of it this way. If you're watching the video, cross your arms, right? Like I am right now. Now, I want you to cross them the other way. It feels awkward because this way, the normal way you cross your arms is really familiar. But if you were to uncross them, it's not familiar at all, and it just feels stupid. It's the same thing with anything else in your life. If you've struggled the majority of your life, and now we're trying to get you to not struggle, it's going to be awkward. It's going to feel funny. If you've always been the kind of person who says, it's too late for me, you creating results is going to go against that, so it's going to be problematic, which is why if you don't have a framework around your identity and fixing it and changing who you are, we got issues. And then that's why I want you to implement that. Okay. Number 4. This is a really good one. Framework number 4 is periodic and strategic maintenance periods. Because one of the biggest reasons I have it written right here. One of the biggest mistakes people make is spending too much time in their calorie deficit. You should be coming out periodically when the signs start to show. And this is why maintenance breaks and reverse dieting works so well. That's what I have right here in my notes. And if you don't have a framework around it, we have problems. Again, anytime this is one of those things that these 5 frameworks are so important. And if you don't have frameworks around these concepts, that's why there's going to be issues. Because one of the biggest mistakes, I had someone ask me this the other day. I did a hot seat for my Facebook group the other day, where basically someone I've never really broken down their situation hops on a call with me. We record it, and I break all their issues down right then and there. And this woman asked me, she's like, "What's even the benefit of like maintenance breaks and things like that?" And I broke it down for her. Whereas one of the biggest mistakes people make in weight loss is they stay in their calorie deficit or calorically restricted for way too long. And the problem is that's taxing on your nervous system. Like imagine you going, like whatever you do for work, imagine working every single day, 7 days a week and never having a day off. Your performance would suffer, you would mentally break, and you'd burn out and eventually quit. Well, welcome to your metabolism. If you are staying in a deficit and calorically restricted, it's very strenuous on the nervous system because the body doesn't like to burn fat. It doesn't like it at all. And it's very it's very energetically expensive to lose weight. So when you are in a deficit, your body is working extra hard to burn off the body fat and things like that. And because it's in burning mode, and if you don't strategically come out of it, your body will eventually what we call down regulate. As in you will literally blink less, fidget less, burn less calories. Your metabolism will slow down. You'll burn muscle tissue. Well, all those things are horrible if you want to lose weight. So this is why a lot of people get in what I call a race to the bottom, where they basically will be in a calorie deficit and they drop their they if you're watching the video, I'm holding my hands up showing a little bit of a object lesson, if you will, where people will drop into calorie deficit. And then what happens is they start to plateau because their metabolism starts to downregulate. And then they go, oh, I quit losing weight. They drop their calories more again. And then they start to downregulate and their body adapts. And they go, oh, I stopped losing. They drop their calories again. And now before we know it, we're at 1,200 calories or 1,000 calories or even less. And weight loss isn't happening. Versus we need frameworks to strategically come out of our deficit into go maintenance, reverse diet, whatever you want to call them. Maintenance periods, diet breaks, reverse diets, whatever you want to call it. We need to have frameworks in place. It's like with our clients, whether it be something like every 12 to 16 weeks you come out, or whether it be, the signs where if like, oh, mental clarity starts to go south. I start to plateau in my weight loss. I start to get weaker. My sleep starts to go south. My hunger gets either too crazy or starts to die. Whatever it may be, we need frameworks. So that way you can go, oop, it's time. And we come out of our deficit and go maintenance so the metabolism doesn't slow down. Because I'm telling you, I've seen so many people who have the greatest plan ever. Like their plan is simple, practical, sustainable, checks all the boxes. It has their favorite foods in it, but they stay in their deficit too long. And then they keep dropping calories lower and lower and lower and lower until they fall off, say, fuck it, give up, gain all their weight back and start back over. Right? I've seen it happen a million times. So you need to have a framework. That's why number 4 is this one, is periodic and strategic maintenance periods. Okay. And the final framework is a plan for when sabotage hits. Holy shit. This is a big one because it's going to. Here's what you have to understand. Like when I say sabotage is usually accompanied by what we call subconscious sabotage, as in you don't even know you're doing it. Again, most of your habits every day and your actions are on autopilot, as in you aren't aware it's happening. Well, that's when sabotage sneaks in. But what I show clients is the number one cause of sabotage sneaking in is actually making progress. How fucked up is that? Like the act of you actually making progress, making good decisions, improving your situation is actually the sign for sabotage to turn on. Think of it this way. Here's how sabotage works if it makes this make a little bit more sense. Think of the thermostat on your wall. The thermostat on your wall regulates the room temperature to where the setting is at. The room's set at 70, house heats up to 80 because it's hot outside. So the thermostat kicks on and cools the room back off. Well, for you, if that's how a lot of people have it work with sabotage, is you, let's say, have always struggled your entire life with losing weight, and now you lost some weight. Well, now that part of you that gravitates to the old familiar will start to sabotage you to cool your situation back off to back where it's comfortable, which is you struggling. This is why most people never make it on their own. This is why most people will take the same 20 pounds for 20 years to their grave, is because they never were able to break outside the pattern of sabotage. This is why whether having a coach or a community or support system or frameworks is so important. You have to have a framework around sabotage, because the thing you have to understand is sabotage will always keep trying until you have spent a considerable amount of time stopping the pattern until it has a new pattern of success. But that takes a while. The mind gravitates to what's familiar. We naturally do. So if you've always sabotaged for the past 20 years and always gained and lost the same several pounds over and over again, your sabotage is really strong, which means we have to be really careful to make sure you win. But at the end of the day, no one's stopping self-sabotage from hitting. It's always going to come in and try to hit. The difference is we just get familiar with the patterns because we have frameworks around this, so we don't let it happen. What I mean by that is, like, for example, one of the things that I have clients to do is I have this whole protocol where we need to, when it comes to sabotage, well, one, we need to list out what are all the things that always happen? What are all the things that always happen when it comes to sabotage sneaking in? How have you always sabotaged the past 10 years in dieting? Cool. We need to create plans for each one of those because they're always going to come back around. You ever notice, like, when you do sabotage, it's always the same stuff. Whether you step on the scale, say fuck it and fall off. Whether it be life gets busy, you quit prioritizing yourself and one thing led to another and you fell off. Or whether it be you lost motivation and fell off. Whatever it is, it's always the same kind of things. So we can create plans and frameworks and strategies for each of those issues, because the nice thing is it's totally predictable. It's very predictable because we're creatures of habit. So that's why we need to have a framework around sabotage and don't just live in ignorance and think, oh, I'm on this new plan, sabotage isn't going to hit. Like I'm telling you, the better your plan is, the more sustainable and practical your plan is, the harder sabotage is going to come after you. Like I even tell clients who have like spent their whole life trendy dieting and they bring me on or they join one of my programs, I tell them out the gate, sabotage is going to fight even harder because I'm here now. is because you have me in your corner, because we're putting things sustainable, practical, and doable in your life. So it's going to swing even harder because I'm here. And that's the hard reality, is it's how human behavior works. If you spent your whole life living in chaos, peace will feel really weird and you will naturally sabotage. If someone spent their whole life broke and then they get inherited a bunch of money or they find the winning lottery ticket, it's why most millionaires go broke who have just got inherited or won the lotteries, because they go back to sabotage and the old familiar. If you've always lived in, and let's say you can't eat more than 1,200 calories and that's like your identity, and now we're eating way more than that, well, that's when people sabotage and go back to 1,200 calories, right? So this is why when it comes to this stuff, you have to have a plan and a framework around all these things. Okay. I hope this is making sense. I hope this is changing your perspective around, okay, I don't need a rigid plan. I need an overall framework that I can apply to a lot of areas. Okay. So recap, because I have a cool announcement after this too. Little recap. So the 5 frameworks, that way you need it, because the 5 frameworks that you should have in your plan to ensure you never gain your weight back is: number 1, the framework around having a great relationship with food. Number 2, a framework around regulating and feeling your emotions separately from food. Number 3 for a framework is your identity and having a framework around reinforcing and creating your new identity. And framework 4 is periodic and strategic maintenance periods. That way you're not living in a deficit forever. And number 5, a plan for when sabotage hits as far as a framework. So those are your 5. Now, here's the thing. Here's the announcement. If you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I think these frameworks are the missing piece for me. I think I'd like to have more frameworks like these. And I think that's the thing for me. I'm actually opening up something brand new. Like, my heart's beating extra fast right now just talking about it, because I'm launching something brand new. Several weeks ago, I announced that I'm changing the direction of my business in my coaching company. Whereas I'm not scaling one-on-one coaching anymore. I have my roster of one-on-one clients, and otherwise then shutting down the coaching business, or not shutting down the coaching business, shutting down the coaching program. Well, here's the other side to this. And I've been working ruthlessly on this, and I'm so pumped to bring this to you, because my thing is this. I know things like these frameworks, the concept of dieting from the inside out, is something that needs to be to the masses and accessible for everyone. The problem is, for years, I have kept this all inside of one-on-one coaching, because it's really hard to teach these. It's harder to teach these things to like the mass level of people, but I know that's where the magic happens at. And I know that's what most people need. But the problem is, one-on-one coaching is where I've always kept all this stuff, is not always accessible. Number 1, I can only scale me so far. Like, not very far at all, because I'm only one Jared. But also, one-on-one coaching either isn't always accessible, it's always expensive, and like most people just can't access it, or it's not a good fit for a lot of people. So I wanted to have an option, and I've been feeling in my heart and in my gut, this is the move to make. This is why I've never felt more aligned ever before in my business, in what I'm doing. And I've never done anything like this before. Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, I've literally, if you've been around for a while, I have never done anything like this. So officially, what is open right now is what's called the Dieting from the Inside Out Collective. It is my coaching group. And I'm so excited to bring this to you. I cannot explain to you how excited I am. I've been working so hard on this, because I just know in my heart this is where I'm supposed to help more people at, because it's about getting this to the right amount of people and to the right people who need this information, who need my help. So that's why I'm officially opening up the Dieting from the Inside Out Collective. It is my coaching group. And now here's the cool thing. Here's what goes into the collective. I'm not going to, I'll basically, there's a link in my bio, or in the description right now. If you want to go look at all the details and see about becoming one of the founding members, there's a special deal going on right now. You can go check that out, but I'll explain a little bit about how it works and what's going into it. So what is in the collective? Basically, all of my food freedom framework, so you never have to look at a menu with anxiety or worry about the stress or worry around food. I'm putting all of my frameworks around food freedom in the collective. Second, I'm putting all my fat loss frameworks in there as well. So if you like the concept of the frameworks that I'm talking about here, I'm literally going all in on the collective with my content around the frameworks that have been proven to work best in the last 12 years of coaching. Like, literally, to give perspective, I'm taking what I've been implementing with my clients for the last 12-ish years at the time of recording this of coaching, and I'm putting all of this in the collective and making it accessible for you all. Okay. I'll explain more here in a second. And then also all the solutions around sabotage so you can finally get to where you want to be and get out of your own way. So like all of the stuff, this deeper dieting from the inside out stuff, the more surface level sustainable fat loss stuff, everything that you need to get to where you want to be, I am putting in the collective, and I am going to be leading this thing from the front with you. Okay. But here's the cool part. This is where it gets really neat. This will all be delivered through basically my private member only chat inside my coaching app, which means no more Facebook. As in like there will be like right now, my app for this is on the App Store right now. So we're getting on. So there's not going to be it's not a Facebook group. It's all going to be inside my private coaching app where I will be inside there helping you, leading you. We're going to have things like group calls. We're going to have a special portal to submit all of your questions that you can have, where like even being in this coaching group, you have immediate access to me, as in like I'm literally a DM away. I'm literally a message away where I'll be able to get in the trenches with you and help you and guide you and direct you with whatever's going on. And I want to make it accessible. I'm going to have a special vault of all of these resources of mine. I have special content inside the collective that's not anywhere else. I am not putting repurposed content in the collective. I literally have been creating this vault of resources is only for the collective, right? It's not anywhere else. Okay. We're going to have, I think I mentioned already, like we're going to have weekly group calls with different themes of calls during the week with me and my team. That way you can get everything that you need. And then I'm going to be even providing all the little stuff. Like you're going to have workouts every single month. You're going to have nutrition help. You're going to have everything top to bottom, left to right that is in the collective. And I'm going to make it affordable. That's the cool part. So all of this stuff is going down and it's available and open right now. Now, at the time of dropping this is launch week. Okay. So because you are a valued listener of the show, otherwise you wouldn't be here. I am offering basically special pricing that I'm grandfathering in for you. So if you want to become one of the founding members of the collective, you should go hit the link in the description and go join. And the cool part is that rate that's discounted because it's during launch week and you're coming from the podcast. It's going to be grandfathered in. So like, your rate is never going to change ever. You could stay in the collective for the next 3-4 years and it's not going anywhere. Okay. So I'm so excited. I'm so pumped. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. Otherwise enrollment is open. And this is where I'm putting all this effort in right now. Like I said, I'm with the direction change in business. I have my own very small roster of one-on-one clients that I'm going to keep very small. But this is why I pivoted directions, because I feel in my heart that this is where I should be going and teaching. I feel like I have a special place where I can teach to more people at once, but I want to do it in the right way. That's why it's now inside my own coaching app. It's why it's going to be a little bit more intimate. It's going to be accessible, where this way, when you have questions, when things come up, when you need questions or issues around your specific situation that may need a tailored answer. Well, I have things in the collective, portals and options and things like that, where you can get the help that you need directly from me. So I'm so excited. I cannot wait to see you inside. If you have questions, never hesitate to reach out. And more than anything, thank you so much for being here. This is such a big move for me. It's scary. It's exciting, but I know it's where I'm supposed to be. And I can't thank you enough for being here along the ride. And so if you haven't subscribed yet to the show, be sure and do that. Otherwise, I will see you on the inside. I will talk to you very soon.